Google is attempting to give ChatGPT a run for their money. Last December, they've announced a brand new family of AI models which would change the way we think about artificial intelligence. Their name would be Gemini, and the Ultra would be the top-of-the-range, most capable AI built by Google to date. It would also be the direct competitor to OpenAI's ChatGPT 4. The announcement also came with a great demo that in the end turned out to be partially fabricated, which did produce a bit of a backlash on the internet. Anyways, last week, the Gemini Ultra 1.0 model has been released to the public, and we will be investigating if it really is the ChatGPT 4 killer. Let's go! We'll open up a web browser and navigate ourselves to gemini.google.com. And if you're already logged in to your Google account, you'll be able to start interacting with the Gemini model straight away. If it's your first time opening Gemini, you should see a little banner in the middle of your screen saying Bard is now Gemini. And the reason for that is that Bard used to be the product name for the AI models built by Google. But now, because the Gemini is the name of the module itself, they've decided to completely rename all their AI products to Gemini. So we'll click on Done. And before we start working with Gemini, let's click on the top left corner of our web browser, which says Gemini. And we should see a drop-down, which gives us the option to choose between Gemini and Gemini Advanced. Now, Gemini Advanced is actually the paid version, which uses Gemini Ultra. So think of it, Gemini Advanced is the product that you're using, and underneath you have the Gemini Ultra model, which is the ChatGPT 4 killer. In order to do that, you'll need to upgrade your account. So go ahead and click that button. And don't worry, because the first 2 months are actually for free, which is great because you get to test drive the product before you actually start paying for it, which does come with quite a hefty price of £19 or $20 or 22 euros per month. So I'll skip the part where I input all my card details and all my information. And now I'm subscribed to the Gemini Advanced product. The UI hasn't changed much, but in the top left corner you now see that we're actually using Gemini Advanced. So in order to make sure that we are running the latest one, let's ask it what model it's running. And the response is that we are using the Gemini model. However, the tool will be deciding which model we'll be using at the given time, depending on the tasks that we're giving it. So let's find out what the Gemini Ultra model is specifically good at. It's telling us that it excels at multimodal capabilities, which include analyzing images and text together. Then comes connecting text to the real world, reasoning and problem solving, adapting and versatility, so summarizing information, creative writing, and translating. And here's one tool that I really like in the whole Gemini/Bard interface. It's the little G button at the bottom, or obviously Google. And if you click on that, it will actually find and highlight the items of the response that can be researched and traced back to an actual website. So if you click on the G, you'll see that some of the text will be highlighted in green or yellow. In our case, it's just green. And if you click the little arrow below, it will give you the links to the actual articles online. So in this case, the last sentence of the response ties to a Medium article about AI's Google Gemini. So this will be especially convenient if you're doing a bit of research with Gemini. Then you can give either positive or negative feedback to the model and give a little additional information about why you actually liked it or not. This should help Gemini become better with time. And then a feature I find particularly compelling is that you can change the tone of the response. Either make it shorter, longer, simpler, or more casual or more professional, which reminisces of the tools that you find on Notion AI. And there's a link to that video just above if you're interested in that. But in this case, we're going to ask it to make the response a little shorter, and it recreates the response into a 3 bullet point message, which is 7-8 lines long, which is great if you're doing a very quick research. Next up, it says that it's really good at creative writing. So we'll ask it to write an essay about learning to play chess. And without any additional feedback, I believe the text is a bit too rich, I would say. Let me give you an example. Chess, more than just a game of squares and pieces, is a silent battlefield where the mind grapples with strategy, foresight, and each piece like a character in an enigmatic story, held secrets of movement and purpose. So for this case, I'm going to use the more casual button at the bottom of the text, and the result is definitely a lot more relaxed this time. Maybe a little bit too much at some points, but you do get a variety to choose from, and I believe the tool is very user-friendly in that way. The next part is probably one of my favorites, and if you've seen my channel before, you've definitely realized that I like to ask all those different models about creating a diet or a recipe for a meal. So in this case, I'm going to ask it for 3 ideas for a low-calorie, protein-rich meal for 2 people. And we're getting a grilled chicken or tofu with roasted vegetables and quinoa, lentil soup with whole wheat bread, and shrimp/fish tacos with corn tortillas and salsa. And to each of those ideas, we get a recipe. However, we don't get a shopping list, which is a bit surprising. Next time I'll just have to probably ask for that. But what I wanted to show you is that if you scroll to the top of the conversation, you will see a show details button, which upon pressing will reveal 2 or 3 other drafts of that same conversation. And they all seem the same in this case. However, if we do click on one of the other drafts and reload the page, you'll see that it comes back with a brand new response. This time it's grilled chicken salad with light vinaigrette, tofu scramble with vegetables, and lentil soup with crusty bread. And this works for any question that you ask Gemini. So if you ask a question, you can scroll back to the top, see the drafts, and choose one of the 3 other ones. So in total, you actually get 4 responses in one. The next item I wanted to test out is how good it is at solving riddles, because it did say that it's very good at those kind of problems. So the first one is a classic. You are in a room that has 3 switches and a closed door. The switches control 3 light bulbs on the other side of the door. Once you open the door, you may never touch the switches again. How can you definitively tell which switch is connected to each of the light bulbs? If you haven't heard this one before, then please pause the video and try and solve it yourself. But we'll have a look at how Gemini does it. And the response is that it's a classic riddle. Here's how you can solve it, which probably tells us that it's already seen it and it knows exactly the response, so it's not really a challenge for it. But it tells you to flip the first switch, leave it on for a few minutes, which makes the light bulb heat up if that's the one, then turn it off and switch the second switch on, walk through the door, and if it's on, then it's the second switch. If it's off but the light bulb is warm, then it's the first switch. And if it's none of the above, then it's the third switch. So I decided to try another riddle, which perhaps it wouldn't know. So I speak without a mouth and hear without ears. I have no body, but I come alive with wind. What am I? And again, if you don't know the answer, give it a thought. But it comes back very quickly with the response that it's an echo. And it also gives you an explanation why that is the answer. Now let's try a more maths-oriented riddle, because as we may remember, some of the large language models out there are not really good at solving math problems. So, using only addition, add 8 8s to get the number 1000. And without hesitation, it's given us the response, which is 888 plus 88 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 is 1000, which is correct. And then another mathematical one. A small number of cards has been lost from a complete pack. If I deal among 4 people, 3 cards remain. If I deal among 3 people, 2 remain. And if I deal among 5 people, 2 cards remain. How many cards are there? And again, it dives into the explanation of why the answer is 47, which is also correct. And then I decided to use a riddle that one of you has actually left in a comment in one of my previous videos in the past, which is specifically hard for large language models to solve. So it's very simple. There are 10 books on a shelf. I read 2 of them. How many books are left? And the result, if you started with 10 books and read 2, you would have 8 books left, which doesn't really make sense, because if I read the books, it doesn't mean that I've discarded them. I might have put them back on the shelf unless I stated otherwise. But then I decided I want to give it another shot and copy paste exactly the riddle as it was. So if there are 10 books in a room and I read 2, how many books are still in the room? And this time Gemini completely broke, because it says there would still be 8 books in the room. Even though you read some, the total number of books in the room doesn't change. So the reasoning is correct, but the answer is still wrong. By that reasoning, I understand that there should be 10 books left instead of 8. Anyways, that's enough riddles for today. I think Gemini did a pretty decent job of solving them, except for maybe the last one. But now it's time to go into the image generation, which has been promised as one of the features that comes with Gemini Ultra. And I decided to put in a very long and complicated query for an image with a dog juggling 4 balls, blue, red, white and yellow. In the background I wanted the Statue of Liberty, which was on top of the Golden Gate Bridge. I went a bit too far. And then it says, I can't create images yet, so I'm not able to help you with that. And so I thought that maybe I went a bit overboard with this question and that Gemini thought that I was a bit bonkers. So I decided to simplify and I asked for an image of a dog juggling. And again, to no avail. And then I tried a couple of other times and it seems like image generation has been turned off. But from what I've seen on the internet of other people actually managing to use the image generation, it is nothing even close to DALL-E 3 or Midjourney, which are some other tools that I've reviewed in the past. Go ahead and click on those videos above if you want to see, but I guess we'll have to come back to this question in the future. So with image generation out of the question, let's have a look at image analysis. And so I've uploaded a picture that I've generated in DALL-E 3 of a man playing the piano by a pitch full of boys playing football to see what it actually represents. And Gemini decided that this image has been removed. Sorry, I can't help with images of people yet. Alright, work in progress, fair enough. So I've generated another image of a plane flying across San Francisco, and the response is that we see a double-decker bus driving over the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, California. There's also a white airplane flying in the sky above the bridge. And then it explains what the Golden Gate Bridge and what a double-decker is, and that it's mostly seen in London rather than San Francisco. However, if you look back at the image, there's no double-decker in sight, so I was a bit surprised. It got the airplane and it got San Francisco right, but I have absolutely no idea where it got the double-decker from. And then I decided to investigate a bit deeper, so I asked it again to give me an analysis of the image, and this time it got even worse. It says that it's a digital artwork of San Francisco, which is correct, and in the foreground there are multiple cable cars on a steep road, which I don't see. They are yellow, red and green, which is not true because there are no cable cars. There are people standing, sitting and walking around the cable cars. Some people are wearing warm clothing. If you see the picture, it's so far away that you can't even see any people in there. So that's not true either. And then it's on again with the double-decker. There's a road with several cars, including a double-decker. There are some trees with orange and red leaves. In the background, there's a bay with sailboats on the water. Across the bay, there are rolling green hills. Again, most of those things are not true, and I think it's being very creative. I wish it used this creativity to generate pictures. Anyways, on to the last bit. And this one is actually really exciting. In Gemini, we have extensions. In ChatGPT, we had custom GPTs, which are those little experts that you can create and use for your specific use case. But in Gemini, we have extensions, and they are limited for now. There's only 5 of them, which is Google Flights, Google Hotels, Google Maps, Google Workspace, and YouTube. However, they are very useful. And let me show you the first one, the YouTube extension. And I'm going to take one of my previous videos, the one about Anthropic that I did last week, and I am going to take the link and I'm going to ask Gemini to summarize that video for me. And within a few seconds, it's launching the YouTube extension and is giving me a rundown of everything that happened in that video. And as I read through it, most of it is correct. It just said that Claude is a large language model chatbot created by OpenAI, which is not true, and I definitely did not say that. It's actually built by Anthropic, but the summary is quite good, and I think this tool might save you a lot of time in the future, especially if you're thinking of watching a video which is 40-60 minutes long, or a podcast of 2.5 hours, which you can just summarize and get the gist of, and probably even ask about the timestamps of when what happens, and dive into that part of the conversation. The next part I wanted to test out is the Gmail extension. So I wanted to ask it how many emails I have in my inbox. And it told me that it can't help me with that kind of information because it's still a work in progress. However, it can help me with information about my inbox or my Google Workspace, which doesn't make sense because I just asked about the inbox. So I thought to myself that perhaps I need to be specific that I want my Gmail inbox information. And so I asked it that, and still no answer. So I decided to ask it about my documents in my Google Drive. And then it told me that I have some features turned off, which is the smart features and personalization settings. So I went into my Gmail, I turned those features on, and I went back into Gemini Advanced. I asked it for how many emails are in my Gmail inbox, and it actually gave me an information that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. unread emails. So I asked it specifically, what is the last unread email? And it gave me a rundown of all the 10 unread emails that I have in my inbox, which is a bit more than I asked for, but it's great. It's actually giving me information about what I need. And then last but not least, I decided to ask it about my Google Drive's contents. And because it's empty, it told me that, well, there's nothing there. So afterwards, I decided to add another document into my Google Drive and ask it again. Unfortunately, it didn't catch it, but the next day, it did actually give me a response that a brand new document has been added to my drive. So the thing that you need to remember is that the Google Drive extension doesn't work immediately. You might need to give it a couple of minutes or hours to index all the new information in your drive before it can actually give you information about them. So this was a little review of the Gemini Advanced module. As you can see, some of the features are still not there, and I think we'll need to wait a couple of months before they start working. So most likely there will be another follow-up review of Gemini Advanced once they fix all those issues. And at the same time, I'm kind of glad that they gave us this 2 months for free package because, well, if we were paying for this, we're not really getting what we were paying for because we don't have the image generation, the image analysis doesn't really work correctly on any of the attempts. So I'm looking forward to Google fixing up their model, but I think if everything works out the way it's supposed to, this is a very compelling model and it might actually be a good competitor for ChatGPT 4. So let's see what happens in the future. But for now, I'll leave you to it. Go ahead and experiment with Gemini Advanced and let me know what you think. And I'll see you next time. Bye.